Okay. All right. Let's share. Let's share. Okay. I just need to choose the right screen to share. That's always the. Okay. Desktop 2. That's the one. And let's start the presentation. And let me just take that thing off. Okay. Good. Everyone, can you see the presentation? Just good. All right, so I guess that's it. We can start, and I'll try not to move too much because, okay, that's impossible. But what happens is that I just move too much, and then I move the microphone. So if you hear all kind of weird noises, I'm sorry in advance. Okay, I am incapable of sitting down without moving, and I'll do my best for you. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you for taking the time to listen to what I have to say. I think it's always a challenge for everyone to, to join in on yet another Zoom, and I applaud you for that. So thank you. All right. So, hi, my name is Mey. But actually, what I didn't tell you is that my full name in Hebrew is Mey Maayan, which means spring water. And I never say that in tech talks. Like people, when I go around the world and I'm like, hi, I'm Mey, but it's actually Mey written with an E. So sometimes people ask me, why is that Mey written with an E? So the reason is because in Hebrew, it means water. So yeah, just wanted to share that with you. I'm a software engineer. I work as a backend developer at AppsFlyer, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan, if somebody missed it somehow. Just wanted to make that clear. And also, I'm a public speaker, which means I talk a lot, but sometimes I actually have a reason to talk a lot, which is at conferences. So I talked at many meetups. I talked at the meetup of AppsFlyer, and then I also did a closure workshop at Microsoft. I talked in Munich and in Amsterdam, and I even visited Tulsa, Oklahoma once, which was amazing. They had great community there. And I've been to Belgium, and I've been to CodeMotion Milan. And this was, I don't remember which one it is, but it was also awesome, I'm sure. And then also Devox Ukraine and Belgium. Oh, this one is actually very good. So what you see over here in the right side of the, the corner of the right side of this picture, you can see how tiny I am. That's because this is a movie theater. Like this conference was taking place at a movie theater. There were 13 movie theaters all together, and I got to do in one of them, one of the biggest. And what you can see is that I started the talk with asking the dude, the video guy, I asked him to zoom in on my heels. These, can you tell? And because that's what I always do. And I always start with apologizing to the audience. I'm like, hey, I know you guys came here to hear about functional programming and about closure, but I have to show you my R2D2 heels. And this is how, 400 people sitting there waiting to hear about functional programming. And I'm talking about heels for the first, 30, not minutes. Oh my God, 30 seconds. So yeah, I've been to a lot of conferences over the, I think, 2 or 3 years, over the past 2 or 3 years. And that's why I think that I came to write today's talk. Because as a public speaker, I always encourage others to do a tech talk. And I always tell them why it's a good idea. I always tell them about the good things that will happen, all the fame and the traveling, but we never talk about the bad things. And there are, I mean, just like in everything in life, right? So that's why I decided to do a whole talk where I only talk about the bad things. And then if you still want to do a tech talk, I did my job. Okay, so let's attack all the bad things that could happen to you if you do a tech talk. One thing that I'm sure that won't happen, or like at least not probable, is I don't think you will die. Okay, not from doing the talk. Maybe unfortunate other circumstances, but it's not going to be because you did a tech talk, then you die. Okay, as far as I checked, and I did my research, you know. So let's talk about all the other bad things that could happen to you, and let's begin. So the first thing is bad comments, and I think this is one of the worst things that could happen when you do a tech talk. And I think this was one of my biggest fears, that I will get bad comments. And here's what happened. This is me going to talk about my first talk. So my first talk was at a conference called Reversim. It was at 2018. And before that, I did, you know, sometimes I did some, not talks, but, you know, I presented stuff inside the company I worked at, or in small groups like meetups, but nothing official. This was the first real talk that I did somewhere. And this was a very big conference. It's one of the, you know, the biggest tech conferences in Israel. And this was the title of this talk. It's called Evolution 3.0, Solve Your Everyday Problems with Genetic Algorithm. And this was about how I developed a genetic algorithm from scratch. In this talk, I went through the different stages of the algorithm. I showed code examples, and I showed 2 different use cases from 2 different projects that I developed using that algorithm. And those were 40 minutes that were hard for me, you know, to do, because it was very, very technical, heavy subject, and I had to go into a lot of details and code. So before doing that talk, I was afraid. Like, I wanted to do it, but I was kind of afraid. And all I had to do in order to get into the conference, there were 2 things. First, I had to send the abstract, which describes what I'm going to talk about. And the second thing was I had to send a video of myself talking about what I'm going to talk about for 1 minute. And I recorded the video, and I prepared the abstract, and I sent the abstract, but I did not send the video. I didn't want to send the video because I was afraid. And at that time, I had 2 mentors that helped me. Both of them are very talented speakers. Both of them had a very, you know, amazing record of being speakers in big conferences all around the world. And we had, you know, this WhatsApp group, and I wrote to them, hey, I sent the abstract, but silly me, I forgot to send the video. Haha, sorry, maybe next time. And they said, and I'm sorry for the language, what the fuck, Mey? And I was like, sorry, I'm just, you know, forgetful. And they were so angry. They were like, are you lying to us or to yourself? Because no matter what, like, both are bad. So they made me send an apology to the organizers of the conference with the video, and they made me send them both a screenshot of the email. They did not left me with any choice, and I had to do it. So I did it. I sent the video, and with an apology saying how sorry I am that I did not send it on time, and I got in. So what happens after you get into a conference is you will do a dry run. And that's what I had to do. I did my first dry run. It was back when we could actually meet people in person. So I went to this tiny place, tiny room that we rented it somewhere. And there were my mentors and a few other colleagues of mine that were, you know, kind enough to come and listen to what I have to say. And I did my first ever dry run with this talk. And it was bad. It was so bad. They told me that I did not speak clearly enough, that they told me that my presentation is messy, that they don't understand what is the main subject. And I mean, there is one subject to the presentation, it's genetic algorithm, but they said that I am all over the place, that I presented too many things, it was too long, and that they also said that I was repetitive. And I was like, okay, that is, what am I going to do? What I did was, I cried. That's it, that's what I did. I went outside and I started crying. With myself, and then I went and I took a train back home, and I cried more because that's, that was the reasonable thing to do when you get bad comments. But eventually I realized that I have something I can do with these comments. I realized that they said things that I can use in order to get better. I realized that these were not just bad comments. These were, actually points that I could use, that I can use in order to become a better speaker, in order to present better what it is that I want to present to the audience. And then I did it. I took all their comments and I went through them one by one. I fixed my presentation. I practiced more. I became more accurate in what I want to say. I made sure that my point is going through. And one of the things that I did was more dry runs. I got more people to watch my talk before I went on to the real conference. I got more people to watch. I asked more of my colleagues to give me more criticism, and it worked. This is a photo from the very first conference that I ever did, and it was awesome. I mean, it felt like a victory because I started really bad. I'm telling you, like I'm being brutally honest here. It was bad at the first dry run. And I'm so happy that I got these comments because they helped me become better. But let's talk about another type of comments, because there is more to come, right? After the conference ended, you get reviews sometimes. In most conferences, in the bigger ones, the conference usually collects comments from people, but they do it anonymously. So people can just write whatever they want. Isn't it magic? It's just so great when people can just say whatever they want and, being anonymous, because here's some of the things that people said. Mey was adorable, but she left out some important part about how she handled invalid result. Mey was adorable, but, oh, thank you so much for telling me one good thing after I've been, standing there talking for 40 minutes about something technical, about a genetic algorithm, and somebody thought I was adorable. Oh, yay, this is exactly what I aimed for, being adorable. Thank you so much. And obviously I left some important part, and I should have asked this person for what other parts I should, add to my talk. Mey was nice. She had a fundamental mistake about the whole subject. She was talking about X, but the subject was actually Y. Oh. She had a fundamental mistake about the whole subject. I stood there being completely wrong for 40 minutes. Not fun. I think the presentation could have been better. Oh, the slides were cool, but please, less jokes and more technical. This is so nice to get that after, again, talking about genetic algorithm for 40 minutes, and I had 2 memes in the entire presentation. I guess that was way too funny for people to handle. I should have left those memes out and make it more serious and do that serious face so people will think that I'm a serious developer with serious things to say. So next time, less jokes and more technical. Good, I can do that. Guess what I did after I read those comments? Yup, I cried because again, that was the smart thing to do. No, really, what is that? Like, what are these comments? These were just, about 4 comments that were, there wasn't much I could do with them because I don't know the person. It's not like I can go back and tell them, hey, I was not wrong about the whole subject. Or I could not tell them, listen, I don't think that was too many jokes because there were only 2 slides of memes. And so there was nothing I could have done with those comments. But you know what I should have done instead of crying? I should have gone and, I should have went and read the other 50 good comments that I got. Let's check out these. So Mey was awesome and did excellent job at presenting the subject. Interesting session. The speaker was excellent. Great. Simple examples and introduction to genetic algorithm. Her passion is contagious. Amazing. Very informative presentation. So I had more. I had 50 of those. 50 good comments and 4 bad, weird comments. So this time around, what I should have done is ignore those. Really. I did go and checked whether I was fundamentally wrong about the whole thing. And when I found out that I wasn't, all I had to do is throw these comments out of the window. And what I want each and every one of you to take from what I shared with you today, and honestly, when I said I cried, I really did. It was very hurtful to read those things. And it did not just stop there. Sometimes I get bad comments on my YouTube videos. Sometimes I get bad comments from people approaching me after a conference. And sometimes they write it in the Zoom chat in front of everyone. Okay, there are trolls everywhere. But if there is nothing I can actually do with the comment, if it's not something that I can fix or check or read more about, what I should do with that comment is throw it out the window. All I need to do is, concentrate or either the very good comments or the ones that I can do something about. That's what I want you guys to take from this part today. Next thing, tough questions. Yes, there are tough questions. And you won't always know the answer. You know what will happen when you don't, what happens when you don't know the answer? Nothing. That's it. Because I was asked, not more than once, a question that I did not know the answer to. So what I did was, I just said, hey, thank you for the question. I actually don't know the answer. It's very interesting. If you can share what you know about it, then it will be great. And if you don't know about it, then we can go and find out together. And that's it. And there are YouTube videos of me not knowing things. Guess what? A lot of people don't know things. And sometimes they are also recorded and it's uploaded on YouTube. What does it mean? Nothing, that I'm human. So sometimes you will get tough questions. But the good thing about it is if you will actually take these questions and you will go and you will look for the answers and you will learn more about the subject and you will get better, then one day you will end up at a job interview and maybe the interviewer will ask you the exact same question that somebody at some conference asked you long time before, but you did the right thing. You went and you checked on the answer. And then you're going to nail this job interview, because this happened to me more than once, because I had so many people asking me so many questions about the same subject that when I finally got to a job interview and I was asked, kind of the same questions, I already knew the answer and it was not even a problem. So yes, there might be some tough questions. Sometimes you won't know the answer, but that's perfectly okay, because you can make sure that you will know the answer next time. Tough crowd. Yeah, that could happen too. What you see over here is me saying, replying to somebody saying, that's an interesting thing to do. Thank you, thank you. So what happened at this specific conference was somebody raising their hand and saying, hey, so what you did with this project, I wouldn't do it this way. I would do it completely different. And I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you. That's an interesting thing to do. And instead of crying this time, what I did is I actually went and I was looking, I looked up to like this person. I wanted to find this guy. I wanted to talk with him about it. And we did. And I actually asked him about it. And you know what? We started talking more and more, and we did some improvements to the project together. So it wasn't just tough crowd. It was somebody from the community. Right, sometimes there are trolls, okay, but we already said that we need to throw them out of the window with whatever they say. But remember, it's not always about being trolls. Sometimes people actually want to contribute something to you. And then it's up to you whether you're going to find this person who wanted to help and you're going to take up on their suggestions, or maybe you're going to listen to them and learn something, because this is a community that you're a part of. Okay, those are people who work in the same area as you. They're not here to listen and to fail you with whatever. They're not here just to make fun of you. Sometimes they raise their hand and they don't have a question, they have a suggestion. So just open your ears, listen to the community talking to you, and don't think of those people as tough crowd. Think of them as your community. Next thing, look funny. Okay, yes, sometimes this could happen. You will look funny. Here, this is me at this Belgium conference. Like, do you remember how many people? There were like about 400 people in at the audience. Okay, not even one person came to tell me, hey May, you're standing too close to the podium, and when you open your Mac, then it covers your entire body, and now you're just a talking head on a giant screen. Nobody said a word. I am a talking head on YouTube for 36 minutes. Okay, that's there. And it is funny. Okay, I checked out this video, not one of my best videos, to be honest. And nobody said a word. So I looked really funny. Nobody said a word, and it happened. And guess what? Nothing. Okay, so what? So I looked funny. And does it mean that people think any less of me now? I don't think so. I think that they understand that I'm just a very short person, and that sometimes, you know, I have a problem even if I wear my highest heels. That's it. That's what people think, because there's nothing more to it. So remember, sometimes you can look funny, but what will actually happen is that you will stand out. Because after every single talk that I do, I get to meet new people. I get to talk with other people from the community. They hear my name. They hear what I am doing in my free time or what I'm doing in my job. If I talked about a game I developed in Clojure, if I talked about a multiplayer game that I developed, they won't remember that I did a funny face or that I looked stupid or that my hair was like this. They will remember that I developed something, that I worked on something. That's what they will remember. You know, just count on your audience to make the right choices about how they will remember you. So it's not about looking funny. It's about how you will stand out if you do that tech talk. And so what if you will look stupid for some time? It doesn't matter. We all look stupid sometimes. We're people. So it's one of the last things, but it's really, really important. I am also a mentor for people, helping people to become tech speakers, and I help them become better tech speakers, or if they've never done talk before, I help them, create a talk. And what I often hear is, listen, May, the subject that I can talk about is way too basic, and I don't know if anybody wants to hear about that. It's too simplistic. I can't teach anyone anything new. So regarding that, let me tell you a story. in addition to being a mentor for tech speakers, I'm also a mentor for junior developers or for students who recently, or either to students who are about to graduate or recently graduated from college. And I help them land their first job as a developer. So what they tell me is, hey, listen, Mey, everywhere that we're looking for a job, and we're looking for a job for inexperienced students, a part of the requirements is prior experience. So what are we supposed to do about that? And more specifically, I'm going to tell you about a specific student that told me that. She said that every time she sent her resume, this is what they told her. They told her, listen, you don't have enough experience for the position of inexperienced students. And I was like, yeah, I can understand how this could be hard. And she told me that she's getting 0 interviews. And we started thinking together, and I told her, listen, you need to do something in order to stand out. You need to do something in order to prove to those recruiters that you have something special, that the knowledge that you gained so far is valuable, that it's valuable because not only you can use it, but you can also teach this, you can also transfer this knowledge to other people. And I told her, listen, there's no such thing as too basic. And I want you to do a tech talk. Okay, so she said, okay, that's a challenge. And she went and she thought about it. What can she talk about? Now, listen, she was a student in her 3rd or 4th year as a software engineer. And supposedly, what can she offer to this world? Well, she did a talk about solving problems in C language. And she did this talk to 100 students that are in their 1st or 2nd year in college. And these 100 students, they were grateful for this talk because for them, solving problems in C language is something that it matters to them. This is what they need right now and at this very point of their life. And when she did this talk at the university, some of her professors attended and they saw her do this talk and they told their colleagues about her. And guess what? At that same week, she got 4 interviews because her professors saw her talking, because her professors, they saw that she has the knowledge, that she knows how to use the knowledge that she gained so far. And they saw other people, listening to her. And this is why they decided to recommend her to their colleagues. And she got 4 interviews. That was amazing. So all she had to do was find the right audience. So there's no such thing as subject too basic. Maybe for someone who is very, very experienced solving problems in C language, it won't be the first thing that they would want to go and watch. But what about all the other people who it matters to them, all the junior developers? So remember, there is no such thing as too basic. There is just choosing the right audience. So one last thing that I want to talk about when you do a tech talk, and okay, it's not as relevant during COVID, but I can't ignore that. Woo! Travel! Okay, because, well, I traveled so much, a year ago. And it was because I went to all of these conferences. And it meant that I saw new places and I met new people from different communities in different countries. And who would have thought meeting developers from Tulsa, Oklahoma? I think this is the most random that I ever had. And I mean, and it was great. And I'm sure that it will come back, normal life. And right now, you should start doing those tech talks, get better at this from the comfort of your own home, do a tech talk when you're wearing pajamas, but later you will become, a professional speaker, and then you can go and travel around the world and do your tech talks and meet new people in real places. And I promise that will be great. So I guess that's it. Let me just summarize real quick what we talked about today, because I kind of, I said I'm only going to talk about the bad things, but then I tricked you because all those bad things, I did show you that that it's just a matter of perspective. So that was my trick. I'm sorry for tricking you. We started with talking about bad comments, and then I told you that, okay, there will be bad comments, but it's up to you how you handle those bad comments. And you need to choose the comments that you actually take into account, and you need to choose which comments you're going to throw out the window. And then we talked about tough questions, and I said, yes, there will be questions that you wouldn't know the answer to, and that is perfectly okay because you're human. And all you have to do is go read a little bit more about the subject, and you will know for next time. And we talked about tough audience, and I told you, don't think about people as tough audience. Think about them as your community, that you're coming to share something with them. And be sure that most people are good people from your community, and they are there to listen to you and support you. And they want maybe later to share some stuff with you also, So it's not tough audience. It's just people from your community. Then we talked about looking funny. Yes, sometimes you will look stupid. So what? We are people. That's okay. I'm sure, everyone is not perfect, and that's okay if you have like an ugly face sometimes. Okay, so what? What matters is that you will stand out. People will know you. People will hear about the work that you did, something that you learned, and this what matters most. And last but not least, I talked about what happens if the subject that you want to talk about, is too simplistic or too basic. And I said that there's just no such thing. There's no such thing. All you have to do is choose the right audience, and that will make it work. That will do the magic. And then that's it. Thank you. Woo!
Mey, that was awesome. That was so good. Thanks for that. And I think it's so true what you say. Like, it really resonated so much with the bad comments thing. We've heard it from so many different people, that just, everyone gets this. You don't avoid it. No matter how good you are, like Trisha, Martin, Ben, like no matter how many talks, how far through your career, that's just, people are out there and people will talk. But yes, so much great advice in that. Does anyone have any questions for Mey after that? Carly.
I have one. Mey, that was amazing. Thank you so much. I loved your slides. They were so cool, and I love the shoes. I just wanted to ask about how you go about finding topics to talk about. I know this is something I struggle with a lot, that there is the beginner element you talked about, but sometimes you wonder if there's the opposite end, maybe something's too complicated, or maybe something's been done before. So how have you got any tips for how to find a good topic?
Yes, that's a great question. So first of all, if you think something is too complicated, it just means that you need to take this topic apart and just start writing everything that you want to talk about this topic. So now you have a list of things that are all connected to this topic, and then you will understand what makes you feel that it's too complicated. Usually too complicated means that it just has a lot. So what you can do then is either decide if you want to go to the introductory part, and then you decide that you're not going to go in depth, or you're going to define in the abstract, just say it out loud. This talk is aimed for people who are this and that. And then you will make the introductory part very, very short, like 1 or 2 slides, and then you'll go right in. And, there are some talks that are not for everyone, and that's perfectly okay. So it's all about defining your audience and defining who is going to benefit, because you can't go from all those 0 to hero talks. They are great, but it's either not really from 0 or it's not really to hero. It's like, it's going to be one or the other, because there's only much you can say in 30 or 40 minutes or in 15 minutes, you know. So that's first thing. And the second thing about, you know, choosing a subject or finding a subject. So start by doing a list of languages that you know, technologies that you're familiar with, and projects that you've done either at work or at home or in college. Everything counts. So if you have a list of languages that you worked with, maybe you can do this versus that, you know. And if you have a list of projects that you did, maybe you can talk about a project and talk about the process of doing this project. Sometimes you can even talk about something that you did and you failed doing, you know. So I saw great talks about how people did not succeed in doing something that they really wanted to do. And this is how the talk ended. Like they said, and then I end up not succeeding in doing this project. And it was cool because everyone at the audience were like, yeah, this happens. We're developers. Sometimes we don't succeed and the build fails and we decide to just abandon the project. And then you can open a conversation with the audience, ask them, what do you think? So this is about that. And, you know, you can always ask me and, you know, consult with me, and I'll be happy to answer in Twitter or in Instagram. I'm always there to help. And I do that a lot. I help people figure out what they can do, like what they can choose. That's it.
Awesome. That's really helpful. Thank you very much.
One thing that I got that I got a question in the chat is just to say a few words about how you can give good feedback after a talk. Now, this is important because we watch other people talks, and sometimes we don't want to be this troll, but we do have something that is not, you know, not the most positive comment. And it is important both for the speaker to hear the real things that we think, and it's also important for you to speak up to your truth, right? So what you need to do is like, just say it and make sure that the other person understand what they can do about it. Like, try to give the problem and try to suggest a solution, even if it won't be the best solution. So for example, if somebody told me, hey, Mey, I think that your presentation is messy. Okay, in general, all of the slides, nothing was good about the presentation. Be more specific. Tell me which slides were problematic. Or, you know, tell me, listen, the beginning of the talk, you talked way too much. You know, you talked for 4 minutes and we were not able to understand everything that you wanted to say. So then I will know how to fix it. And this is a very constructive, you know, criticism. This is something that I can do something about it. Or if you think that I had a mistake, refer me to the specific mistake that I have. So then I can go and read about it and I can get better. That's it. Just make sure that I know what to do with your comment.
It's really interesting. I don't think we've ever tackled that in all the interviews that we've done, how to give feedback from a talk, the right way to do it. So yeah, really interesting. I'm going to watch that back when it's recorded. I've put a few links in there. I forgot to send my original post, and I've put another link to Mey's Q&A there that we did. So we spent about an hour. Sorry, I've got my 3-year-old is coming in, so forgive me if she makes an appearance. But yeah, so we covered a lot of stuff, didn't we, Mey? That was phenomenal, the Q&A. And so yeah, have a watch of that if you want to hear more about Mey and her story and all the different things. But thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Steve-O, are you ready?
Yeah. Okay, let me try and share. Which one am I sharing? Bear with me. I should be ready, shouldn't I? This one. Okay. Hopefully you can see something. Search the perfect, yeah. Nods, yes. Yeah, okay, cool. Okay. So this is after Mey's amazing talk, this is the other side of the coin. This is about what do the conferences care about, and how should you go about getting accepted. So we'll do it quickly, but I'm sure once you get your head into this, it'll start to make a lot of sense. So this all comes round from, at the end of the day, when you submit a talk, you have to write some words. Okay. And before you even get there, before you start going, hey, I'm going to submit something to a conference, you need to understand a little tiny bit about how conferences work. Okay, and meetups and everything. Okay. It's about bums on seats. Right? Conferences, there is this thing, there's this virtuous circle. And really, if you see the words, you'd think about it, it makes sense. So conferences want to be successful, because if they're successful, then they can be put on again. And so you end up with this circle which says that if you have good content, then you'll get good people will come along and see things, you'll get an audience. And if they like the content, they'll say so. And that makes the conference successful, because they'll be promoting the conference. And so the conference want to keep that going. So they will be out looking for people, because they're a successful conference. That will mean that speakers and others will want to submit talks to it, because you've got a good audience. And a good audience is scale, but it's also feedback. Actually, having tough audiences is really good when you're a technical talk, because you're getting good feedback. So you end up with this big circle of going from one to one, going around. So whether the conference is a commercial conference or it's a community conference, at the end of the day, it's the same challenge, excuse me, which is sort of the bit in the middle where all the three arrows meet, which is conferences want to create programs that are interesting for their audience. And that is a mix of people that they've already seen before, because they're sort of like safe bets, and new people. Because if we don't have new speakers and new ideas, then we end up with conferences that talk about Java EE for 20 years, and it gets really boring. So anyway, so there's the basics of, we're trying to create conference content that is going to have an appeal to you if you're an attendee, but also creating a platform for people to come along and talk about what they want to talk about, because you need both. So with that in mind, when people go, I want to submit to a conference, there's a thought process, okay? And of course, it starts off with you going, hey, I have a great idea. I'm going to talk about spaghetti on toast and a computing thing, which is what Holly Cummings used to do. You have a great idea for a talk. What are you going to do with it? Okay. And this is where it all starts to go wrong. So why do you want to present? One of the things you get is you talk to people, they go, yeah, I'll speak at a conference. You go, why? And quite often people want to speak at a conference because they want to speak at a conference, rather than understanding that it's about communicating, getting feedback. It is definitely showing off that you might get a good job out of it, but it is being certain that you understand what it is that you want to talk about and why you want to talk about it. Okay, so next one. So once you've decided you're going to speak and you've got a bit better understanding about why, then you go off and you research, because as Mey said about the right talk at the right conference, turning up at a Java conference and talking about .NET may not be as applicable as to going to a .NET conference. So you go there, go read, go research, go look at the previous talks, go get a sense about what the conference is about, go see what the abstracts are like, okay, and use that to inform yourself. So one of the things is also to work out how long you have to talk. Do you have 5 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour? And you'll have choices, but some conferences have very, very tiny speaks, main sessions. So the Node conference is typically like 20 minutes, and that changes what you're going to talk about. So anyway, so a bunch of research, and then you got to pick a style. What's your talk going to be? How are you going to do this? When you have a talk, it's actually going to fit some sort of style. And this is important because the way that you structure your talk is related to what you want to share. But if we were talking about how do you decide what you want to talk about? Well, here's a bunch of styles. And let me just talk about those in more detail. So I'm not going to spend very long on this because we haven't got time, and you can look at the slides later. But basically, there are different types of talk. So there are things like case studies and comparisons. So A versus B is, do I use Maven? Do I use Gradle? Here are the differences between them. That's a useful talk. Case studies are great. Case studies are, well, my company wanted to do this, and we looked at these things, and this is what happened, and this is what's good, and this is what was bad. That sort of insight is fabulous because your audience is coming to learn things. And so you're there to teach them. So these sorts of structures, whether they are case studies or comparisons, are what people are looking for because you're helping them short circuit their journey, their learning journey. And then on top of that, there are other things like the introspection stuff is, do I talk about how we're doing development? Do talks about how you do Agile, how you adopted, how you moved to DevOps, whatever. People are very interested in how we do things as much as what we do. And then the other three, emerging technology is just that new stuff. If you are lucky enough to be involved in something new, then there's a great opportunity to talk about that. The new version updates is the really standard talk. You know, what's new in microprofile 4 point something? Well, people want to hear those. They're not top of the list, I think, for lots of people because you can go read those, but they are still useful. And if you are the right person to do that, then that would be a great talk. And the last one is just for fun. Right, that's the thing that reinforces that we're all in this business because at one level we're enjoying it. And if you have robots, you have VR, AR, whatever the latest stuff is, as shiny as possible, do a talk about that. And if you're going to a Java conference, it doesn't have to be about Java. I did one which was Raspberry Pi controlled flying sharks. You know, it's just fun, and they're just as cool, right? So they're the types of talk that you could do. And the idea of saying that is to help you think about how you want to structure this, because this also helps when we're selecting talks, we're looking at it that as well. We're not be particularly prescriptive about it, but we are thinking about how do these talks compare and how do they connect. Right, then you've got to do the hard bit, which is you've got to go learn about what words you've got to type in where. So when you submit to a conference, there is a process. And luckily, every conference has a different process. So that's to make sure that you're not bored with it. So you have, obviously, you're going to put in a little title and an abstract, because if you've ever been to a conference or you've just looked online, you know those. They're the things that you spot. But also, you've got to figure out what tracks they have, and the conferences will tell you that they have a track on Java, core Java, they may have a track about cloud, they may have a track about architecture. You've got to figure out where your talk fits in, because if you submit to the wrong track, you might be unlucky in that the selection committee may go, really sorry, but we're not going to move it because they have too many. So sometimes it can be a problem. So that's why it's good to do the research and understand. Then you have to work out what type of talk you're going to do, and that's mostly about how long it is, though, of course, you can always submit for a keynote, and unless you are invited to do that, you probably won't get very far. But the other types, like main sessions or BOFs, birds of a feather, which is basically a less pressured talk, then you can make choices. And if you understand how conferences treat these things. So conference talks, the main talks, they tend to be harder to get accepted in, whereas BOFs are, I said, less pressured, and there's likely to be more slots, more available slots. So submitting for a BOF, if you're a new speaker, is likely to be better than going for a main talk. Okay. Now, other things you may have to put in, elevator pitch. Yes, so you've got to type an abstract and then a little tiny summary of your abstract to get people's attention. You may have to do an outline of your talk. Some conferences want you to detail all the things that you intend to talk about. Then you need a photo and a biography, because we want to make sure that you're pretty, or that you're fun, or that actually you're a human being, which is pretty good. We want a biography from you because we want to have some sense that you are the right person for this talk. So if your biography doesn't match in any way what you're talking about, then maybe we may be a bit suspicious. And then videos of previous public speaking. They are really useful, because if we don't know who you are, how do we know that you're any good at speaking? So we don't need to see you talking about the talk that you want to talk about. What we want to see is you talking about anything, so that we can see that you can actually speak, and that you're understandable and you're worth us, giving you a slot. Okay, so it's all that stuff. And then because you're trying to convince a bunch of people to take you, and you're competing with possibly hundreds of submissions, you need to have something that makes you stand out. So your talk has to be entertaining, inspirational, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and honest. We want you to submit things that are real and that are from you. Okay, not too overblown, but it should stand out. Okay, and as I said, all the bits that go with this, if you have a blog and a bio, that's information that we're going to read to see whether or not we think you're going to connect to this talk. Are you going to be the right person to do this talk? And then you have to write some words. And the really horrible thing is all the effort that you're going to put into writing the abstract and the title. Well, in general, the title, well, possibly people will spend maybe 2 seconds reading your title and maybe 10 seconds looking at the abstract. Okay. But you still have to do this, and you still have to get it right, because you have 2 seconds to catch people's eye, because quite often, probably the majority of people that go to conferences, when they're selecting what to go see next, they'll be looking at a few things that are happening at the same time, and they'll make a decision probably during the previous session as to which one they're going to go to next. So you're competing with 3 or 4 or 10 other talks. And they're going to read your title and go, oh, that's interesting. And then they read the abstract and they go, oh, that's really interesting. I'm going to come along. It's a tough old world. Okay. So make your abstract punchy and intriguing, right? Make them want to read the next bit. Okay. Don't do boring things, do exciting things. Make it intriguing so that they'll go from the title to the abstract, and make them want to be curious. Okay. Now I don't think I've got time to do this. I'll just put them in, but you can see later a couple of things. So these are words that have come from various people who've been involved in conference submissions from all on both sides of the fence. And we sort of collected some of those. But there are some things in there that you might think about, which is make things, as I said, making things punchy, but also making sure that your English is good and people have, it's been spell checked, and that it's clear what you're going to get from the talk. The number of submissions we've had, one-line submissions. I'm going to talk about Raspberry Pis, and you go, yeah, that's good, but a bit more detail, please. So it doesn't have to be super detailed, but it has to be clear that it's worth it and that your audience will learn something. Okay. Some more words. Yeah. So I always say use positive active words. Make the stuff that people are reading exciting, entertaining, and intriguing. Okay. And as it says, use all the characters for sure. Don't, if it gives you 300 characters or 500 words or whatever, try and use them, because that's what they're there for. But don't waffle. Just try and make them useful and informative. There are lots of things not to do. Don't be offensive. Don't be rude. Don't do product pitches unless you're going to a product conference. Don't use silly words like rockstar, ninja, pirate, elite, unless, of course, you are one or it's satire. Okay. And if you need to communicate with the selection committees at conferences, there's usually another place for you to do that. So don't stick those in the abstracts. Live codes. Yes. if you're going to do live code demos, put it in the extras to say that you intend to do that, and be very clear that you know what you're doing, because live code demos, unless you're very good at it, are likely to bite you. And if you're a new speaker and saying, as some people had, I've never spoken at a conference before, and I'm going to do 6 coding examples, and you go, that's probably not going to work too well. So then get your abstract right. Here's 2 versions of the same talk. The first one, so you can tell because I used to work for IBM, this is an IBM one. The first one was me going to somebody and going, hey, will you do a talk about a mainframe? And they went, yeah, here's my talk. And it's all like blah, 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 boring, because it's detail. And it's like, yeah, it's very interesting. The one below the bar is my attempt to make it more intriguing. Okay, it's still the same talk, but it talks about things in more of an interesting way. And it tells you a bit more about what you're going to learn in ways that connect with human beings, rather than just a tech list. Right. So yeah, this is the last slide. So how about that for on time? I want you to understand that you're making a promise when you submit to a conference. And you're making a promise to a bunch of people, not just to the organizers of the conference, but the audience themselves. So what you write in these things is there to get read by these people and get you accepted at a conference. But it's still the promise that you're making to the audience that this is what you're going to give them. And if you write things in an abstract and then you talk about something completely different, that's not going to be particularly good. You know, you will get criticisms when people say, well, that's not the talk I was expecting, and that's not good. But for other conversations we've had, other sessions we could do at the RJC, we can help you get more towards getting that abstract more connected. But at the end of the day, you're going to write this abstract and this title and follow these other details. And as long as it's honest and truthful and represents you and what you want to talk about, then that will come across and you have a really good chance of getting in at a conference. And as a new speaker, if you've not done this before, and you tell us that you're a new speaker, then we will go the extra mile to give the opportunity to allow it to speak at a conference. And I will stop there. There we go.
Thank you very much, Steve. That was great. I don't know if I made the point initially as well, but so Steve's run a bunch of workshops on how to get into speaking. But Steve, I mean, you've spent years now doing this within IBM and now regularly getting hundreds of speakers accepted at conferences, right? Yes.
Well, not hundreds accepted at conferences, but I've done lots of people have benefited from my from my expertise, or at least from my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it really hit home when we did a panel. For anyone that wasn't there, I'll put a link up in a second. Steve was on a panel that we interviewed with other conference organizers around the world. And we were talking about DevOps, and it was something like 1,300 things you had to review, something like that, 1,300, 1,300, something like that, to get.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, large conferences, multi-track conferences are like that. And some of them get even more than that.
Which really gives you an idea of the challenges that that these guys face and why that abstract has to be so good, so quick and stand out. But no, that was great. Does anyone have any questions at all for Steve? Oh, Mark's just put, what does BOF stand for?
So, okay, so that's a good one. So BOF stands for bird of a feather. And it's a hangover from Java 1. So Java 1 used to run sessions called Birds of a Feather, and basically they were rooms set aside where the idea was people who cared about the subject would turn up and they would just chat. There was never any expectation of it being a recorded presentation with slides and stuff like that. But unfortunately, over time, that's become less so. So basically a BOF is like a standard keynote, a standard session, but it's probably run at a different time, and they probably won't record it. But other than that, it's just basically a standard talk.
Great. Any other questions? Any questions at all for Steve or Mey before we sign off? I know we've just gone over 2 o'clock, so any final ones?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to jump in quickly. We've got a few spaces left for lightning talks on the 22nd of January. So if anyone is here and thinking about giving a talk, then let me or Barry know and we'll put you on the agenda.
If Mey has successfully tricked you with her pitch there at the end. Anyone thinking about it? Any little maybe thumbs up, maybe thinking about giving one, if not for this one at some point this year? Okay, that's good. 1, 2, any for the hat trick? 3, there we go, good. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. We'll reach out to everyone, but you're all absolutely welcome. The lightning talk sessions that we do Friday lunchtime, you should all tune in and catch one anyway. They're good fun. They're really light and you know, you come and just have your lunch and whatever. They're meant to be real nice, supportive places. Dom and I have both given talks there, Mey and Steve. So yeah, but there's mainly, and Sam got, in fact, I'm seeing a load of people that have, but they're mainly new speakers and mainly first timers. So you're all absolutely welcome to get involved. Other than that, have a great day and we'll see you soon. Thanks again, Mey and Steve.
Bye then.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.